The Firehouse, written by Sapphire Lion 15. June leaned out the window and whooped. I grabbed her by the jacket and pulled her back in while our dad, Assistant Chief Rex Manson, laughed and turned the corner. I groaned and shoved my face deeper into the book I was pretending to read. It was the first official night of summer. We had just graduated the 9th grade, and I'd assumed that June would start acting a little more mature. But of course, she had stayed her childish, goofy self. I should have known better. I'd been wishing that since the 5th grade. It was a yearly tradition that, on the very first night of summer, Dad would let us spend the night with him at the firehouse. It usually wouldn't be allowed, but our dad was second in command, and his boss, Fire Chief Moore, had been his college roommate. No one really minded anyway. Nearly everyone wanted the first night of summer off, so it was usually just the chief, Dad, 2 or 3 other firemen, my sister, and I. Here we are. Dad pulled our car, a 1993 black Ford pickup that he loved like a third child, into the station. June cheered and reached into the back for her bag. She was 14 like me, and shared my copper skin and dark hair, although she grew hers shoulder length in contrast to my crew cut. She was wearing her favorite black high tops, blue jeans, and a purple jacket over her white Detroit Tigers tee. Why she rooted for the Tigers was beyond me. We lived in Ohio. Unpacking is not a spectacular sport, Dad joked as he grabbed his gray duffel. I rolled my eyes and grabbed my backpack, hearing the crinkle of cellophane inside. June and I had learned the hard way that things could, despite the building's purpose, get pretty boring around the firehouse. We always came prepared. We had a tablet with the Star Wars series on it, the entire Harry Potter book series, our phones, all necessary chargers, 2 flashlights, a 6-pack of root beer, a 12-pack of Coke, and a king size of every candy bar we could find at the gas station. The firehouse had a vending machine, but all it had were granola bars. It was past 6, and most of the firemen had already gone home. Everyone else, except Chief Moore, was in the fireman-only penthouse-style bedroom, which, according to Dad, was basically a room with 3 bunk beds and a TV that looked like it belonged in a museum. Because of the possibility of midnight emergencies, at least half of the crew needed to have gotten a decent amount of R&R. Dinner was a bag of Philly cheesesteaks from the deli down the street and a can of soda each. June beat everyone at Go Fish twice. I won 1 game of poker and lost the next one, both gaining and losing my father's watch, and 3 card towers had been erected before Chief Moore and Dad had decided to turn in. Because it was only 7:30, they told us to sleep tight, to not panic if we heard the alarm, and jokingly warned us about the ghost. June and I shared a skeptical glance. There was a story about a ghost who haunted the firehouse. Some firemen had claimed to have seen it, but the fact that they were all sleep-deprived didn't make their stories very believable. Dad said that no one really knew what the ghost was, or rather, what the ghost looked like, if it did in fact exist. However, one thing was for sure, someone always claimed to see the ghost on stormy nights. Thunder rumbled in the distance, but we were unconcerned as we laid our sleeping bags out and got settled. June started wolfing down a Hershey's Special Dark and reading about the prisoner of Azkaban, while I chugged a root beer and watched Luke destroy the Death Star. By the time the storm had really picked up speed, we were out cold. Blaring sirens woke us up. June, who'd laid her sleeping bag close to the fireman's pole, had time to ask what was wrong. "Lightning hit the hospital across town. We've got to go take care of it. Stay here and stay safe." June could only nod. I felt the same way. As much as I didn't want anyone to get hurt, I hated seeing my dad put himself in danger. We listened, hearts beating like bongos, as the fire truck pulled out of the garage below and charged off into the stormy night. We tried to stay up until Dad got back by drinking the now lukewarm sodas, but when your nerves are shot and it's the middle of the night, caffeine can only do so much. June fell asleep first, then I dozed off. I woke up an unspecified amount of time later to someone yelling at me over the thunderstorm. "Kid, hey kid, wake up!" The man in front of me was staring at me, wild-eyed, and was only inches from my face. It was not the most pleasant way to wake up, and I couldn't help but jump a little when I saw him, who didn't exactly look like he'd won any beauty contests recently. "Who the flip are you?" I asked, although I didn't say flip. I wasn't usually profane under normal circumstances, but being woken up in the middle of the night by a man who looked like a long-lost descendant of Quasimodo probably didn't fit that category. "Name's Nye. Driver-engineer Nye. Wake your sister, son. We need to get you two out of here." He spoke with a thick southern accent. "What's going on? Can't you hear that storm, kid?" He looked at me as if I'd said something incredibly stupid, then ran to the window and looked out. Scared and groggy, I did as I was told, assuming that there was a tornado warning. It wasn't unusual. The summer when I was 10, there'd been 3 tornadoes in the same month. I told June my tornado warning theory, and we went after Nye, who had started pacing the hallways. We walked in silence until Nye started climbing the stairs, which even June, who knew as much about meteorology as a pig knew about flying, knew was a bad idea in a tornado.
"What are you doing?"
"We need to get up top before she gets here."
"She?"
June looked as confused as I felt. The only firewoman at the station was Lieutenant DeMarco, and she had left hours ago. "Don't you know nothing? She's been coming here on stormy nights for centuries, always trying to take someone with her. Well, it won't work.
Are you talking about the ghost?"
June sounded both terrified and excited. "Who did you think I meant, Shirley Temple? Of course. That dead little brat's been trying to come for me every night for years now. But I'm prepared. Oh, you bet." "What? That made-up ghost?" I hadn't intended to yell, but the fact that Nye was screaming at this point made me feel like I needed to shout to make myself heard. "It's a fake story. And what did you need us for if you were going ghost hunting? Isn't there a tornado?" "Tornado? You got chicken crap for brains? This is nothing but a summer storm, about as dangerous as a dolly. Now quit yapping, we gotta find her. Oh yes, she ain't gonna be coming back no more." He rambled on. I began to remember what Dad had said about how some firemen claimed to have seen the ghost after becoming sleep-deprived, and I wondered if Nye was mentally unstable. His clothes, a filthy fireman's uniform topped with a ripped yellow raincoat, didn't help his case. June grabbed my arm.
"The guy's nuts. Let's go call Mom."
I nodded. While we were at the station every year, our mom was at home, enjoying some time to herself. We'd always been told that, should there be any emergency, to call her so she could pick us up. When Nye turned the corner, we bolted down the stairs, looking for the central room. The firehouse was easy enough to navigate in the daytime, but it was the middle of the night, and we were on the brink of panic. It might as well have been a maze. We raced around, looking everywhere for our phones, and came face to face with something, or someone, who was glowing white and floating 2 feet above the ground. June screamed first and grabbed my arm as I stood, gaping in shock and horror. We ran back the way we came, in an ever more confusing series of twists and turns. When we saw Nye, June practically screamed at him.
"We saw the ghost!"
"Which way?" June pointed back the way we'd come, though neither of us was sure if it was the right way. Nye didn't question us. He ran, and the last thing that I saw before June yanked me into a nearby room was Nye, running around a corner, screaming about putting an end to the madness, as lightning illuminated the station. I woke up the next morning fully convinced of two things. One, that I was never going to spend a stormy night at the Firehouse again, and two, that there was no comfortable way to sleep in a shower stall. June had pulled me into a bathroom the night before, and since neither of us wanted to leave, we'd bunched together every clean towel we could find and tried to sleep. It was an experience that I had no intention of repeating. I walked out of the bathroom and looked out the window. The sun was shining, and except for puddles and branches everywhere, it looked like the storm hadn't done much damage. I walked back to the central room. Our sleeping bags, books, tablet, and snacks were right where we'd left them, and the candy bars reminded me exactly how long it had been since I'd eaten. I went to the kitchen, where I was relieved to see Dad, the Chief, and everyone else walking in, smoke-stained and exhausted, yet alive. I ran and hugged Dad, forgetting for a moment that I was 14. He hugged me back, and then asked if there was any coffee. In minutes, bacon and eggs were frying, and nearly everyone was slurping coffee. Even though I still hadn't gotten used to it, I had a large cup. After the night before, I needed one. "So, where's your sister?" "Bathroom." It wasn't a lie, I just didn't feel like explaining why she was in the bathroom. "Gotcha. You sleep last night?" He gestured towards my mug. "Some." "I understand. You two must have had a lot of fun last night." "You could say that. You could also say that we met Taylor Swift last night, but it didn't happen, I thought." "All right, I'm going to take a little nap, then I'll take you two home. That sound good?" "Sure." I was trying really hard not to sound eager. As my dad trudged towards the bedroom, Chief Moore turned his attention away from his eggs long enough to ask if there had been any trouble last night. "Nope." I hoped that Chief Moore couldn't tell that I was lying. "Sorry you two were alone last night, but if you'd seen that fire at the hospital, you'd know that I didn't have a man to spare." "What do you mean? Nye was with us last night." "Nye? How much soda did you drink? There's no one here named Nye. Now, there was one a couple decades ago, according to one old-timer I met in my training days. He said that Nye died one night when he was chasing after a little girl who'd wandered into a building that collapsed when it was struck by lightning." "Jay, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Thank you again, everyone, for your support. Make sure to give the talented authors some praise, and watch for my merch store in the description. Have a good night, everyone. Love, the Mistress.